Hello, everybody. We have taken just about forever. Hello, everybody. We have taken just about forever trying to figure this thing out. We're learning as we go. It says we have one viewer, so I don't even know if anybody is watching us at this point. But I know we are recording for later. So we are going to, I guess, get started. I sent out guest invitations so that people could join us. Don't know what's up with that. So I am going to send everybody a message over on the Facebook end of things and let them know we are now live. So we are live.
Let them know that they have to log into Google+.
We're live. And they don't have to log into Google Plus to view it. They have to log into Google Plus to be on video, which I already told them. So, okay. If you can hear me, you have to, if you want to be in the video and interact back and forth, you have to log into Google Plus.
Hello, everybody.
Really, now we're
taking just about forever. Hello, everybody.
playing back somehow over there. Can you mute that? Okay, so maybe we'll get this all figured out and get everybody on board. We'll try to do that before we get started. I don't see you, George. There is a live chat on here. Let me see if I can turn that on so that I can look at the same place. Okay, there's a live chat. It says Timothy just joined it.
Hello.
I sent an invitation to everybody that gave me a Google Plus. That should have made something ring. Oh, there's George.
Hello,
George. And get everybody on board. We'll try to do that before we get started. I don't see you, George. Okay, if you're not talking right now, try to mute your microphone. I can turn that on because we're going to get a lot of feedback. But
I don't have a camera.
Oh, that's fine.
Hello.
I sent an invitation to everybody that gave me a Google Plus. That should have made something ring. There's George. So we hear myself and say that like that.
We'll have to mute.
Have to mute mine.
Yeah, because it's lagging. It's lagging from where we are, except for the second lag.
We're going to get a lot of feedback. But, okay, but don't play the video.
We all have to take it some.
Okay. Anyway, I think we're waiting on MJ. So, let me see if I can mute this real quick. There, it stopped. Okay. So, if y'all want to, in a minute.
Nice, George.
In a minute, we're gonna do testimonies and stuff. Once we get everybody on board, and I'll unmute you guys because if the mics aren't muted, we'll have a lot of interference because I guess everybody's video is gonna play at different levels. So I've got everybody kind of muted so we don't have all kinds of craziness. But we have this group chat over here. If you can't see it, there should be a menu on the left. Is there a menu on yours, Tim? Or was it automatic?
There's not a menu on mine.
Do you see the chat?
No. I see comments and stuff, but I do not see a chat.
Maybe I have to type something in there. Hello, test 1, 2, 3. Something pop up? Anybody seeing the chat?
You got everybody muted, remember, so they can't respond.
Well, I'm also looking at the Facebook message, too. I'm going to try sending another invitation to MJ. If you can hear me, MJ, if you'll send your Google Plus one more time. And also waiting on Kieran.
Well, we got 4 people watching right now.
So that's you, me, George, and MJ. So
I think so. MJ, send us a message on Facebook if you're actually listening to us.
Where'd the chat go?
But yeah, I'm not seeing a comment thing or a chat thing.
It says group chat.
Is it through Google or through video?
It should be in the same box.
It's not on mine.
Okay.
It's not even on the YouTube one. Of course.
Okay. I guess we're going to give this, we lost a viewer. I guess we were seeing George double. I don't know. Maybe that's what that was.
Hey, George, are you still with us?
Let me unmute him because he can't answer. Right.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm on Hangouts.
Hey, George.
I'm not hearing George.
Did I accidentally mute him again?
Yellow.
Hey. Say something, George. Talk to me.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm not getting anything.
All right. Say something now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, George. Awesome.
Okay. Well, goodness. Well, we may not have a bunch of people. Now it says we have 2. What's up with that? Maybe I don't count. Maybe people got tired of waiting for us to figure it out. But, you know, this can be edited down and, you know, we may not have everybody here with us right now, but we can certainly talk and other people can watch it later, I guess.
Or we can give them 40 lashings apiece until the morale improves.
Until the morale improves.
Wow.
That's a good idea.
George, I love the fact that you can always make us laugh and smile. Thank you, my brother.
I have my moments.
So do I. I try to, at least.
We were sitting here and we're at the dinner table. And he was like, we have cooking the chicken. He said, we have 9 minutes until the live broadcast starts. And so we're sitting here counting down. I was like, I feel like a bomb is ticking about to go off. And we're sitting there, and I thought it was going to start automatically. I'm like, what's going on? And we finally, I think, figured it out. I don't know if I could recreate it and do it all over again. I'll definitely have to play with it some more between now and next time. So.
Yeah, this is okay. This is pretty cool. It's just I wanted to invite another Facebook friend of mine, but I had no clue on how to tell her how to get on Google Share or Google Circle, whatever. I think I just backed into it a couple of
On
years.
accident.
But this is really cool.
Right. The cool thing about this is once this is all over, it will be saved and people can go back and watch it. I mean, I can cut all of the weirdness out of it, of us trying to figure out what was going on so people don't get bored to death. But, yeah. I mean.
We just got a message from Miss McGuire. She's watching and listening.
Okay. So, hi, Ruth. So, does she want to come in on the video or audio
I'm
end?
about to ask her.
Because I tried to invite her, but I didn't know her Google Plus.
While we're waiting, can you explain how you do the Google Plus?
You just need a Google account. Anybody that has a YouTube account already has a Google Plus account.
Okay.
And when they log in, you just upgrade to a Google Plus.
I just lost my phone.
So if you go to plus.google.com, you upgrade to that.
No.
So, I mean, I don't really know how to explain it. I set one up for my friend Tracy today. I don't know why she couldn't make it, but I set up her Google Gmail account, and then it said, do you want to upgrade to Google Plus? And I just clicked yes. So,
hey, I got an idea. Why don't you make a video and a YouTube video and put it on the Facebook so everybody will know?
An instruction manual.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can put that on Tim's to-do list.
Thank you. The honeydew list. Gotta love those.
Oh, we got up to 4 and then went to 3.
Now, what Bible are we using? I'm using ESV.
You can use whatever you'd like. The way I'm gonna do it
I'll be right back. I'm gonna go grab the Bible.
is I've got this option here where I can do a screen share, and I'm gonna show you. I use eSword, and when I'm studying, do you see? Well, I got to make it where you can see first. Hold on a second.
Oh.
Present to everyone. Okay, do you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, do you see along the top here where it says LITV, LXX Plus, bishops? I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor or not. And it says KJV.
Yeah.
Those are all the different translations. And like KJV Plus has the Strongs with it. And one cool thing that this thing does is I can actually, let's see, let me stretch that out some. I can compare, and I have it set up which ones I want to compare.
Right. Now, do you install that on your computer, or is that online?
I installed it, and it's free, and they make an app too. The app's $1.99, but the one on your computer is free. And tonight I've got, since we're doing testimonies, I did my notes here so everybody could see and read along. So that way, if everybody has different, Bible versions, like Tim has said before, like I don't have a problem. I can read along in any Bible, and it doesn't bother me if they're reading from a different one. But Tim, kind of it messes with him, and I understand it can mess with other people. So I kind of just took the liberty of, printing it all up, what I'm going to talk about, so that people can read along.
That's the thing with my dyslexia. It's harder for me to follow along if someone's reading a different version than what I'm actually reading. Something just doesn't click in my head properly.
Yeah, I'm using BibleHub.com.
Okay.
Okay, that's a good little site.
Yeah, I use that all the time before someone turned me on to eSword. So.
Okay. MJ just responded with it's going to take a bit to refine it. Don't get discouraged. And then Miss McGuire's is Google Plus is either Miss McGuire or HogKevinUSA@gmail.com.
Okay, let me try sending a message or an invite. I have to figure out how I did that last time. Invite people. Okay, Miss McGuire.
Yeah, or Mrs. MRS space McGuire, no period.
MCGUIRE. Oh, there it is. Okay, invite. Okay, hopefully I got it right that time. I think I tried to put a period in it last time.
I'm letting her know you're sending her an invite. Alright, I'm back, beautiful people.
Our son is sitting here watching. We said,
Preston, say hi.
Hello.
No, actually, look. You're on camera. Say hi.
Hi.
and we're like, you can go play games. And he's like, can I watch? And I said, you don't know this because I can see it on here.
Oh.
I said, you don't know this because, this is your life, but when we were your age, this was the future. Like, people didn't really do this. This is the thing, like, people said would happen in the future.
It's kind of like those old Bugs Bunny cartoons back in the 50s when they said we were have flying cars in the 80s.
Hey, did y'all see who's the author of Harry Potter?
J.K. Rowling's?
Yeah, did you see somebody commissioned her? Oh, yeah, the Pope commissioned her for a new Bible.
No.
Actually, I read into that. It's actually a photoshopped. It's actually photoshopped. That's not true. The original book she was holding up was actually she's going to be redoing the Harry Potter book and rewriting it. So it was a whole elaborate prank that they had pulled, trying to denounce her and stuff like that. It's on an article that I posted it on our site on the Living for the Lord, and Herman had actually gone through and actually found out it was a prank, and he had done the research and spread it on to me.
Was it on Snopes? Because I don't trust Snopes.
No, I think it was something recent.
Snopes has confirmed Snopes.
Did the Vatican pull it, or it didn't surprise me one bit.
Let me see if I can find it real quick on my phone and let you know.
Have y'all been listening to any of the recent Tom Horn? Did I send y'all that recent Tom Horn? Yeah, okay.
Here it is. It was actually posted under water4whispersnews.com. It was the original posting. And Herman discovered yesterday that the picture is photoshopped. She's not editing the Bible. The original book she is holding up is the Harry Potter book. So I think that, why do you have a crown on your head all of a sudden?
I'm just having fun. Sorry.
You're crazy.
I was trying to put it on your head, actually, but it didn't work.
I think that picture that was taken was actually from the original release of the Harry Potter, or one of the books.
Arr.
You're having too much fun.
I'm trying to take it off, actually.
Wow. You see what I live with, George? I love her to death. I really do. She always makes me smile.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Our son's silly, as you can tell.
Anyway, sorry, what were you saying?
Where'd that come from?
I had no idea, but I'm so glad I found it.
Oh, goodness. You can put in your own tracks. Great. Miss McGuire says we have her on Messenger. Can she hear us or see us?
I can't hear her or see her. She's not showing up in our boxes down here either. And she can hear us, though, so you don't have to.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
See, we're still getting used to the future. Our son's over here probably thinking we're a little slow.
Now, do you realize that in March of this year, next month, actually I think it's this month, that the events of Back to the Future 2 are supposed to be taking place? You realize that? That this is the year everything from Back to the Future 2 takes place.
Well,
the hover car, it's the holographic job.
Skateboards.
That would be so cool.
Okay. I can do both.
Just hover around.
She's getting the Google Plus plug.
Okay. Do what, George?
I gotta go take my meds.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We'll wait.
You had to do the taking. Why don't you just play the Jeopardy theme?
It's not on here.
Oh.
Oh.
Shh, listen. Those crickets are quiet.
You're having way too much fun.
I am, probably.
This Bible said it's going to take a while.
I only have us signed up for 2 hours. I don't know if it'll let me go over, but So, what do y'all think about this new trend of women wearing mustaches? Is it, everybody thinks it's cool, but clearly the Bible says women shouldn't?
Considering there's only supposed to be one face in this relationship that has a mustache, it's me.
I could stroke it when I'm thinking, what if I looked like this? Would you still love me?
Of course I'd still love you. Would I kiss you?
Oh. I think someone else found the sound effects.
Would that be you, George?
No, but I am back.
Okay. See, now I wish my computer would allow me to actually get on so I can do... Wow, now that's pretty cool. So I can actually do the video on the computer and do all the sound effects like you guys are doing. Because
Okay. What is it? Do you actually see that?
Yeah.
I don't know what it looks like on your end. What is it? Oh, no, that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like the ocean.
Yeah,
That's why it says experimental. Anyway. So, how do I turn that off?
Almost demonic.
Yeah, I was supposed to make it a background behind me. It didn't work. Yeah, I think it was a little demonic as well.
Ah, here we go. I'm about to be...
I guess let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and start us off with what I had prepared.
That'd be a good... Yeah, that's
And, you know, if anybody else joins in, great. And sorry if you had trouble getting in tonight. We'll try and get that how-to video done. And
I'll work on it Sunday.
And yeah, so let's see. Let me pull this up where y'all can follow along. Sword, share. Okay, so we asked everybody to come with a testimony because many of us have faced trials in our lives, and it is part of our testimony. We have to have a test in order to have a testimony. And I've often said that God, in His infinite love, shows love even to the wicked by blessing them in life. And we, in our carnal minds, sometimes we fail to comprehend it, and we think that that we're poorly rewarded for our good deeds, while the unjust are compensated richly for being unjust. It only makes sense to me that our loving Father, if He's, you know, He would want to bestow gifts to all of His children, even those who will not inherit paradise, and that we mistake for injustice. What we're mistaking for injustice may well be that we're only seeing the wicked get their reward or inheritance in this life rather than the next. And I said that long before I came across this passage in Luke 16:20-24. It says, "And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate, full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass that the beggar died, and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And in hell he lifted up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water, and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime received thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things, but now he is comforted, and thou art tormented." Sharing our testimony is good because it not only testifies to others of God's power, but it recalls to our remembrance where we came from, what God has done in our lives, and how He has delivered us. Not only that, but it is something that we are admonished to do in the Scripture. It says in Acts 10:42, "And He commanded us to preach unto the people and to testify that it is he which was ordained of God to be the judge of the quick and the dead. 1 John 4:13, hereby know we that we dwell in him and he in us, because he hath given us of his Spirit. And we have seen and do testify that the Father sent the Son to be the Savior of the world. Whosoever shall confess that Jesus is the Son of God, God dwelleth in him and he in God. And we have known and believed the love that God hath to us, that God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. Herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment. Because as he is, so are we in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. And that he that feareth is not made perfect in love. So as you look back on your past, ask yourself these questions. You know, some of us know what our testimony is, some of us really don't. But if you're trying to figure it out, look back and say, where can I see God at work in my history, even if I didn't realize it at the time? And what can I learn from looking back at my past? What things am I thankful for in my history, things that I might not have been thankful for in the present moment when it was going on? In Psalms 105, it says, "Oh, give thanks to the Lord, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the people. Sing unto him, sing psalms unto him, talk ye of all his wondrous works. Glory ye in his holy name. Let the heart of them rejoice that seek the Lord. Seek the Lord and his strength, seek his face evermore. Remember his marvelous works that he hath done, his wonders, and the judgment of his mouth. O ye seed of Abraham, his servant, ye children of Jacob, his chosen. He is the Lord our God, and his judgments are in all the earth. He hath remembered his covenant forever, the word which he commandeth to 1,000 generations." If you read the rest of Psalm 105, it goes on to mention the plagues brought upon Egypt before God delivered Israel from the Pharaoh. Many of those things seem similar to what we see actually happening in the world today, water turning to blood and fish dying everywhere. 105:27, it says, "They showed his signs among them and wonders in the land of Ham. He sent darkness and made it dark, and they rebelled not against his word. He turned their waters into blood and slew their fish. Their land brought forth frogs in abundance in the chambers of their kings." You know, we have that mentioned in Revelation about the frogs too. "He spake, and there came diverse sorts of flies and lice in all their coasts, and he gave them hail for rain and flaming fire in their land. He smote their vines and also their fig trees, and brake their trees in the coast. He spake, and the locust came." Again, the locust, Revelation, "caterpillars, and that without number. And he did eat up all the herbs in the land, and devoured the fruit of their ground, and smote also the firstborn in the land, the chief of all their strength. He brought them forth also with silver and gold, and there was not one feeble person among their tribes. Egypt was glad when they departed, for the fear of them fell upon them. He spread a cloud for a covering, and fire to give light in the night. The people asked, and he brought quails, and satisfied them with the bread of heaven. He opened the rock, and water gushed out. They ran in the dry places like a river. For he remembered his holy promise, and Abraham his servant. And he brought forth his people with joy, and his chosen with gladness, and gave them the land to the heathen, and that they might observe his statutes and keep his law. Praise ye the Lord." Do you think that Israel always felt like God was with them? If they did, would they have built a golden cow? Surely not. We can look back in the Bible outside of the desert wilderness with our unclouded judgment and think they were pretty silly to defy, a God that was there doing all these things for them. But our hindsight is 2020, and in a lot of ways we really are a lot like these ancient Hebrews. At the time, it may not seem like God is present when difficult things are happening in our lives, or if things are going so good, we may even forget that God is around because we don't feel like we really need him. Like I said, hindsight being 2020, you've heard it said you can't see the forest for the trees. Maybe we are so super focused on the tiniest aspect we lose sight or miss the big picture. That's why sometimes it's easier to see God working in our lives by looking backwards into the past. Once we're outside of the situation and not all tangled up in the raw emotions, or because we have matured or learned more about our Heavenly Father, we can see things more clearly or with a better understanding. No matter what you are doing, no matter how insignificant it may seem, God is right there with you, and He is interested in your life. You can see this by looking at the past. So you have to know He is there with you when life is throwing all of its lemons and everything else in its arsenal your way. God is longing for us to not only trust Him now and in the future, but to surrender to Him, believe, and have faith that He is there with us in everything that happens. Romans 8:27, it says, "And He that searcheth the hearts knoweth that what is in the mind of the Spirit, because He maketh intercession for the saints according to the will of God. And we know that all things work together for the good of them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose. For whom He did foreknow, He also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom He did predestinate, them He also called, and whom He called, them He also justified, and whom He justified, them He also glorified. What shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? He that spared not His own Son, but delivered Him up for us all, how shall He not with Him so freely give us all things? Who shall lay anything to the charge of God's elect? It is God that justifieth." So we have to know that just as He did for the Israelites, He's going to do for us. It goes on to say right here, "Even as Abraham believed God, and was accounted to him for righteousness. Know ye therefore, they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham." We are the children of Abraham. "And the scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the heathen through faith, preached before the gospel unto Abraham, saying, In thee shall all nations be blessed. So then they which be of faith are blessed with faithful Abraham. For as many as are of the works of the law are under the curse, for it is written, Cursed is everyone that continueth not in all things which are written in the book of the law to do them. But that no man is justified by the law in the sight of God, it is evident, for the just shall live by faith. And the law is not of faith, but the man that doeth them shall live in them. Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us, for it is written, Cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree. That the blessing of Abraham might come on, Galatians 3:14. That the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through Jesus Christ, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. Galatians 3:25. But after that faith is come, we are no longer under a schoolmaster, for ye are all the children of God by faith in Christ Jesus. For as many of you as have been baptized into Christ have put on Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There's neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus. And if ye be Christ, then ye are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. But as many as received him, to them gave he power. John 1:12. To them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. That is so powerful to me, everybody's trying to be Hebrew these days and telling you to live, by the law of the Old Testament. And I believe that those laws are important, but, we are saved by grace, and all of us were called from a broken place. Moses was a murderer. Noah was a drunk. They even, insulted Jesus by saying, the carpenter's son, he can't be our king. So I think it's important to share our testimony, to show what God has done in our lives. And George, if you'd like to start, I'd love to hear what you've brought to share with us this evening.
Yeah, I didn't have a particular verse like you had asked for, but yeah, I can do my testimony of, a little bit. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I'm just joking. Well, I'll kind of make an addendum to what you were opening with, and you unpacked a lot there, but when I first got saved, this was like in the early 70s, and my mom, God love her, she was charismatic before charismatic was cool, and I mean, she and about 12 other ladies. I mean, charismatic was not only not cool then, for men, it was just unheard of. And in my hometown, there were maybe a handful of men, at least that I knew of, that had the courage to stand up and be, men of God. So I learned a lot of that heritage through her. And I mean, she took on spiritual warfare the way y'all have been taking it on. I mean, for the whole town. But to tell you the truth, I don't think I really got saved back then, based on what I experienced in my rehab just a few years ago. And the grace, okay, what you were saying about, we build our faith by looking back at what kind of like the honeymoon period. And yeah, that's helpful, but I mean, y'all know in y'all's marriage, you can't always, well, when I y'all know how I joke with you about getting a room, but when you have a relationship and you keep pining away at how it used to be, but yet you don't make any changes, then you're not going to get what God has in store for you. And so what I've been trying to teach myself in the past few years is to, when I couldn't muster the faith, somehow I was able, if you start thanking Him, even when you're really sinful, if you hear your kids thank you sincerely, even though they're guilty of something, if they're thanking you, that's going to touch your heart. And that's going to make you reach out to them and pull them back under your wings. So that's and in these days, it's all you can do. And that's the most important thing for us to do for our own little battle, is to stay under his wing. And even for being witnesses to the people around you, when the only way that they can see who God wanted you to be is when you're under his wing. But here's something else. No matter how hard it is, you always have to get back up, because you can't worry about if you're going to fail again, because you never know who's watching you, that as to see what kind of witness, especially if you have children. And I don't, but I have I've told y'all, I have this Israeli business partner that he's gone through things in his life. He is being in the, fighting some of the toughest battles and wars in Israel's modern history. He's seen evil up close and personal, as much as anybody on God's green earth, outside of the kinds of evil that y'all have seen. And I haven't seen either one of those. But what he respects about me is just he sees me get back up and continue my walk, and that I don't look down my nose at him for not having the faith that I think that I do. So anyway, I guess in a capsule. Now, one thing I do want to correct you on, as far as the Old and the New Testament, or the Jewish law. Did you watch that Jim Staley video that I sent? I've sent so many I can't.
And there's been so many videos that every time I get a new one, like, I add them to a list and we watch them, but a lot of times we'll fall asleep during some of them, or we haven't gotten to them yet. So if you just want to tell me.
Yeah, we're kind of back in videos right now. We still have some from back in November we haven't watched.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the one video that I've seen of his, what he stressed, it was an eye-opener to me, that first of all, there is no Old and New Testament. We were grafted in, not when Jesus came, we were actually grafted in when during the Exodus, when we were coming out of Egypt, when they were coming out of Egypt, and Moses asked God, "Hey, Lord, what am I going to do with all these stragglers?" that aren't your people. And God said, God being God, he said, hey, if they're willing to go through the same laws, which, first of all, the Torah does not mean the law. It means instruction. But he said, if they're willing to go through the same instruction that you're willing to go through, I'm willing to take them in. So that was the first grafting us in. Then the people that Paul was witnessing to was that the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom, and that's that. You have to put it in the context of why would the pagans of that time think it was good news what Paul was telling them? Yet, if you put it in the perspective that God had told them, listen, you screw up, you break this covenant, you're gone. I don't want to see you anymore. And so that's what the new covenant was. And here's the big revelation that I got out of that video, which was, I think it was in Jeremiah, when God told them, or maybe reminded them that if a man divorces his wife, she can go marry another man. But if that man if the second husband dies and she's without a husband, she cannot go back to the first husband. Well, so, up in heaven, when he's going to send Jesus down, well, the angels are thinking to themselves, hey, who's going to tell God that he's going to break his own law? But then God said, the other part of that law was, God told them, when God told them that Jesus was going to be crucified, then she can remarry the original husband. I mean, how that would ever happen in real life, I don't know. But so that was the miracle. That was the big miracle of that Jesus.
George, if you can hear me.
Okay, we're back.
Sounded like a rubber band.
Sorry, George, we froze for a little bit on this end. We missed probably the last few words you said.
Okay. I think one of the biggest miracles was the way that God was going to be able to, for lack of a better phrase, be able to break that law was that Jesus would be crucified and be brought back so that he could marry the bride. And the last point that I wanted to make, and then I'll hush up. Jim Staley, at the end of that video, said he had a conversation with a rabbi, an American rabbi that's very prominent, and he was really moved by Jim Staley wanting to observe all of the feasts and all of the festivals. And he said, you know, Jim, the reason Jews don't believe that Jesus or that Yeshua was the Messiah was because y'all read from the back of the book and we read from the front of the book. And that I can't remember, there's another very salient point that I can't quite, I always forget it. But that should be, if you can go find that video, if you find that video, just go all the way to the end, about 10 minutes before the end, and he'll tell you that whole little doodad. Anyway, I'm done. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, George. Thank you. Now, I think that's interesting that you brought that up, because I don't know about other Christians, but I read from both halves of the book myself, and and I was trying to get it pulled up. My computer was acting up, and I didn't want to freeze this out again. But you know, in the New Testament, even the Old Testament, because we had a guest pastor come to our old church once and try to convince everybody, and I think he had them going there for a minute, that, you know, that God changes. And the Bible says God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And he said, well, God changes because he doesn't require a sacrifice now. And I pulled up the book of Isaiah and showed him how God said your feasts and your holy days and your new moons and your Sabbaths are an abomination to me, burning your incense. And you know, I don't like to paraphrase the Bible in my videos all the time. I say don't do that, but I couldn't pull it up. So, but I just thought it was interesting that a lot of people don't know that even in the first half of the book, that, you know, he said, you know, I don't like it. And you brought up, you know, the divorce thing as well. And he even mentioned at one point, I'd rather you not get divorced at all, but because you have a hardened heart and you're going to do it anyway, I'd rather you do it right. You know, so I mean, God can break the law because he made the law. And you know, he's the only just judge there is. And I've always said that the law is, you know, it was never really meant to be something to oppress you. It's something to protect you. It's kind of like when your mom yells at you to not play in the street. It's not because she didn't want you to play and have fun and have a good time. It's because she didn't want you to get hit by a car.
Yeah. But there's so much more deeper grace and just infinite meaning in the Torah that we hadn't even scratched the surface of it yet.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, I find, you know, when I was younger, I didn't really like to read the Old Testament very much, and I'm finding the more that I go back to the Old Testament, I see a lot of things that bring understanding to the New Testament. I see a lot of foreshadowing of the New Testament, almost like, the book of Ecclesiastes says there's nothing new under the sun. That which will be has already been, basically, and you can see that playing out throughout the whole Bible.
And that's not only when Solomon is saying that, he's not just saying it in the vernacular that we understand today, but he's also speaking about the Nephilim and the well, not when I don't mean to generalize that, but that spirituality, what was going on, the climate, the spiritual climate that was going on back then. So that's almost like a prophecy.
Right. So, Tim, do you want to?
Actually, I thought I'd hand it over to you. Let you go ahead with your testimony first. I mean, we only got about 30 minutes left, and you're the host, so you go ahead.
Well.
And if you want me to go first, I'm just trying to do the fight thing. Let ladies first.
Well, I'll go ahead and go since he brought up Nephilim.
Go right ahead.
I've got several testimonies I guess I could pull from, but I guess I want to talk about what even brought me into this ministry. George, we came into even talking because you had commented on a post in a group about music and its influence on us in a molecular level, and I had actually shared some articles about that on my website, which, I mentioned to you, and you're like, oh, do you have a link? Well, at that point, I hadn't really shared my website with anybody. I had just started working on it because I had had an experience where, and it wasn't the first time this had happened, but I had actually died physically. And the first time, it was not a good experience at all. I've believed in God my whole life, in Jesus. I never had, speaking about faith, I never had a problem believing that Jesus Christ died on the cross, rose from the dead, or that he was the Son of God. Never even questioned it. I just believed it 100%. People want to call that blind faith, that's fine. I argue a lot about blind faith now because looking back, I have plenty of reason to have the faith that I have today. But yes, at the time, I did have absolute blind faith. In fact, we had a pool growing up, and I would spend hours trying to walk on water because we had read in the Bible. I went to Christian school, and we had read in the Bible that if you had the smallest amount of faith, you can move mountains. As small as a mustard seed. And I would kind of can you say something to him about him? I would kind of, get a little upset with God and be like, hey, I know I have some faith. It may not be huge, but I know it's at least as small as a mustard seed. Why can't I walk on the water? But anyway, first time I passed away, I was at a point in my life where I wasn't giving Christ the honor he deserved. I had come under some false teachings, and a lot of people I'd heard praying to Jesus, and I'm like, wait a minute, can you let those dogs in, please, so they'll stop barking? Sorry. Wait a minute. In the Bible, it clearly said, Master, teach us how to pray, and they would pray. He said, our Father in heaven. He didn't say, dear Jesus or dear me. So that didn't seem right to me. Already did it. I just got a text from my sister. We let the dogs in. So, you know, I wasn't giving him the honor and the glory he deserved at that point when it happened the first time. And I haven't really shared this fully online. This will be the first time. I had a seizure. And all I know is that my whole entire body just, you know, was moving so fast. And everything went dark. And I dropped down to, I guess, my knees. But at that point, I was not aware of everything around me. And I just remember, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I was no longer on Earth. The only way to describe it was I was in space. And I saw this shape. And I remember seeing this shape before, like in textbooks, like science books. It's like a golden sphere. It has all these triangles interconnected. And I've tried finding this shape since, and I think it's called a polyhedron. And it took me forever to try and find that. The only way you know, Epcot Center is in the shape of this thing that I saw, except mine was 3D and a hollow. And I'm in the center of this thing, and I just know that I'm in the presence of God. And it's glowing, and it's gold, and it's electric, and I'm moving constantly, and I'm sharing the awareness of God. And I suddenly realized that if any human on earth were to be God, they wouldn't be able to handle physically the pain, because if God were to stop moving for even a second, we would all cease to exist.
Yeah.
And all the while this is going on, I'm moving constantly because I'm unaware at the time I'm having a seizure. I'm getting hotter and hotter, and my whole body's on fire, it feels like, and just to the point that I feel like I'm about to explode, and I cry out, God, help me. And at that point, it felt like I got plucked and pulled out, and all of a sudden I got really heavy, and I can only guess that at this point my body was falling to the ground on earth. But in my mind, I got real heavy, and I began to fall. But I wasn't me. I was a drop of water forming and falling. And that drop of water that was me hit the dirt, went down into the ground, where it met a seed, and then I was the seed. And the seed grew, and it blossomed, and it became at first this little flower that began to grow, and then it became a tree, and then I was the tree. And as I'm reaching with arms that are branches up into the sky, I realize I can't move. I'm rooted, you know, I'm stuck there, and just as I begin to panic, something reaches down and plucks me up again, and I'm lifted higher and higher into the sky. And just as I'm afraid that I'm going to be dropped and fall all the way down to the earth, I hear a voice. And at first, you know, I thought it was my voice, but, you know, as I've matured in my walk with God and a Christian, I now recognize that voice is that voice when the Holy Spirit speaks to you. And it said 3 times, I am God. And the next thing I know, and I want to explain that when I was looking at the earth from this lifted up place, the greens were like turquoise. The blues were almost purple. The clouds, it was different. It was like almost like seeing the earth when it was brand new. And slowly I began to come closer to the earth until I was standing on this street. It was like, the only way to describe it is almost like a foggy London street. And I'm not walking, but I start going down the street. And all these people are going the other way. And they all look familiar, even though I don't really know who they are. Every face looks familiar. And it's almost like they're in black and white. And as I'm going further down the street, it's like I realize their clothes are getting more and more modern. And eventually, I open my eyes, and I'm in my body. And the two people that I was with before I had my seizure, I hear them saying, should we call the police? What do we do with the body? Do we say we knew her? What do we do? They're talking about what to do because there's a dead body in this dude's driveway. And then somehow, I had a couple more seizures after that and a couple more visions I won't get into. But somehow I came back with this knowledge I didn't have. And God said, for now, don't share this. And there are people out there like you. And when the time is right, you'll be brought together. People tried to tell me that's not right. God wouldn't tell you not to share it. Well, it wasn't until recently that I came across scripture that, put my mind at ease. God does give you visions sometimes and tells you, in the book of Daniel, seal this up. Don't share it. Book of Revelation, seal this up. Don't share it.
He told Enoch, Daniel, and Paul.
Right. And, I didn't even think about it, but he is fulfilling his promise about bringing people together who know the things that I came back knowing. I just never thought in my life that it would be people on the internet.
Yeah.
I thought I was actually going to be brought together with these people like in, I guess, my day-to-day activities. But it only makes sense because why would God place us all in the same neighborhood or the same town or the same state? And, the people who actually asked us to start this Bible study, I don't know if they're watching, Victoria and Gilbert, maybe they'll watch later, but we were talking to them. They have friends in your state, George, and they're in our state. Mm-hmm. So, that's struck out as weird to me. They're very encouraging to us. They're like, we don't know if you have people praying for you in your ministry, but we're there for you. I want to jump ahead before we, I don't want to take up all the time, but, the second time I knew who Jesus was. It was 2013, 2 days before Christmas, and I was reading the Bible. It was someone who was sitting beside me. They were reading the Bible. I was reading along on my phone, smoking a cigarette, and we're reading the book of John, and Jesus is at the wedding feast, and he gets to the part where he says, take the cup, pour the water in, and I got a familiar sensation that reminded me of the time that I had passed away before. To me, it's almost like a skipping record. Everything kind of slows down and starts repeating. And what happened was I was hearing her say over and over again, take the cup and pour it in, take the cup and pour it in, and I started to think, that thing's going to flood. It's going to overflow. And I realized what was going on, and I cried out loud, Jesus, help me. And this person, not even knowing what was going on, reached over and said, it's okay, it's coming. And in my mind, I thought, they're telling me Jesus is coming. And I just felt a peace. And the next thing I knew, my heart just started, palpitating and going really fast. And, it turns out I had a heart attack. I had some heart issues going on at the time. And next thing I knew, I was dead. And I was being lifted out of my body. I could see the city. I remember passing up through the water tower, and I began seeing these images. My aunt, who had recently passed away, I saw a photo of her, and I was given the number 5 and the number 20 at some point throughout this. And I remember telling God I was upset about some things that happened with my son, and he showed me this very vivid image of a stained glass window and Mary holding her baby, and her baby being taken out of her hands. And immediately I just had this understanding of God knew my pain very intimately. And I felt this swelling of love in my heart, but then I was still angry about the state of the world. And I said, God, why is this still going on? Why are we still doing this? And he said, I have to keep adding, or I'm sorry, I'm trying to read a message at the same time. Over here, Gina's sending you a PM to add her to the conversation. What's her?
She should be PMing you.
Okay. His answer to me when I said, why is this going on, is we have to keep watering the trees. And to me, that made all kinds of sense at the time. And eventually, and I can't share with you everything, and I can tell you that it wasn't like we're having a conversation now. I'm not speaking like this to God. And when you talk and I hear you, that wasn't how it was. Eventually, we wind up at this place. I don't see a PM from Gina.
I just took the full message her dad called.
Okay. Eventually, we wind up at this place, and I didn't take the time to look around. We can't describe to you. I just know that there were colors everywhere, and as odd as it seems, even though I was side by side with Jesus, I can't tell you what he looked like. I have no idea what he looked like. But it felt like being with your mother, your brother, your sister, your lover, your best friend, your grandmother, and your children, not your children, I guess, but anybody you've ever loved with all your heart, except for none of their flaws, and they loved you exactly as you were, and they understood you completely, all of your weird weirdness that nobody else ever gets, it was there. And, you know, I don't remember what all was discussed in that moment, in that place where we were. But it was almost like we were just laying at rest side by side, just having this conversation. And the last thing I remember of that conversation is, and it was almost like it went in time with what was being read back where my body was, which was when Jesus says, "Why are you bothering me, woman? Now is not my time." He said, "Now is not your time." And he said, "I'm going to be sending you back." But he said, "I'm going to comfort you." Because, you know, both times I died, it is not a comfortable sensation going in and out of your body. And he said, "I'm going to be comforting you." And all of a sudden, I felt like I was just like this little fetus in a womb, you know, stuck in my thumb and everything. And it's just about as soon as I realized what was going on, and I could hear the voice reading the Bible again, I said, I don't want to go back there. I know this story. I know what happens. They're going to kill you there. I don't want to go there. I hear, you know, not here, but he said, "You were there." And I'm still trying to work out completely what all that meant. But I was just filled with this overwhelming love, and I just remember, you know, I'm going this way back to earth and reaching back and going, wait, just one more minute, because I just wanted one more second with that overwhelming love to be there and know that I was with my God, with my Savior, just one more second. But by the time I was reaching out, I was back in my body, and the person reading stopped reading and grabbed my hand. And for a minute, I was so confused. Like, I'm like, is my friend Jesus? And in a way, my friend is Jesus, because Jesus is in all of us, and what you do for the least of these, you do for me. But, you know, I just had a heart attack and died. You got to kind of forgive me for my confusion. And I said, wait a minute, why am I back in this body, in this crappy life? Because, you know, as I was being comforted in the form of a fetus, I almost thought I was going to be born again. Like, I remember being like a little afraid, thinking I was going to come back, have another life, which, you know, that's not really biblical, but have another life and know all the things I knew and be stuck as a baby. So I guess I was a little bit relieved I came back as myself and was on that couch. But at the same time, I was upset. You know, I cried for like 2 weeks straight, like, for having to be back here and being homesick and heartbroken that I wasn't there with Jesus. because being with him was like having that hole in your soul that you fill all the things in this life with. Everything you're looking for. It was all better. It was true happiness. But finally, I guess after a couple weeks of crying and feeling sorry for myself, I decided that, this is not what I was sent back here for. I was sent back here because he's coming, and he's coming soon. There are a lot of things that people need to know. And I have spent the last few years of my life really upset with myself because I have not done enough for my Savior. And that was when I started the Ecclesiastic website. That was when I started undergoing deliverance and learning about spiritual warfare. And so I guess all of it has kind of culminated and developed into what you're seeing today. And this, Bible study is just one element. Tim and I haven't really told anybody this, but we signed up for Blog Talk Radio. So we're going to start doing probably a radio show too. But I guess that's what I had to share. I mean, it's a very supernatural experience, but God is a supernatural being. A lot of people try to limit him and put him in a box, and I don't understand how they can do that because he is so amazing.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. So, do we have anybody else? I hate to do this, but when I take part of my meds, the timing, I take some melatonin so that my neuropathy doesn't bother me. And I'm about to knock out. But
I think Tim was going to close us out, but
okay. Go ahead.
My coming from where I came from, it's a little different than y'all's testimonies. Y'all were both raised in a Christian household. Y'all both knew God. I had to find God for myself. I was never taught really about him. Back when I was a kid, I used to, on Sundays, sneak to church with a friend of mine so I could learn. And unfortunately, an event happened, and I lost that friend. And that friend and I were very close. We were like brothers. And that happened back in August of 2000, right before I turned 18. And it was at that point that I decided that I was done with the church. I was done with God, done with the church, because this friend and I had talked about doing mission trips to Africa and discipling to people and helping bring people to the Lord. And, I felt that if God couldn't help this person, why do I need God? And so at that moment, I denounced God, I denounced the church, and I walked away. At the age of 17, I turned to a paganistical lifestyle. And for the 14 years of my life, from the age of 17 to 31, I became a hardcore alcoholic. I carried the devil with me everywhere I went. He was always at my shoulder, always at my side, telling me, one more drink, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. You're not going to hurt anybody. Somehow I was getting back and forth to work from Corinth, which is my hometown, mine and Rebecca's hometown, to Dallas, which is about a 30-mile drive, drunk, not killing anybody, not killing myself. I allowed myself to be sucked in to the lifestyle that was flesh. I want to summarize a little bit of everything going. We're going to flash forward to about May of 2014, May 8th. That's what I call my own personal D-Day. I had attempted suicide several times before, but never succeeded. And I don't know how you can call it suicide, but I'm thankful I did. May 8th, that night, I had decided that my entire family and my friends, even at the time, mine and Rebecca's 8-year-old daughter, mine from my previous relationship, would be better off without me. So I sat there with a bottle in one hand and a pill bottle in the other. And I told myself I was done, you know. And I heard a voice in my head that I didn't recognize from the normal voices I heard. And it told me that I needed to wait. That I have something better for you. You know, as I sat on my couch, I thought to myself, well, this is a voice I don't recognize. It's a voice that is not one of the norms. So maybe, what the hey, I'll listen to it. So a few days had passed, and I'd started getting to the point where I was tired of listening. I was tired of waiting. And God worked in a miracle that I didn't think was possible. Back in June of 2000, I had prayed a prayer asking if anybody would ever love me for who I was and accept me for my flaws. And if someday that person would come, I'd continue to serve the Lord forever. Well, then the event in August happened, and I'll go ahead and tell you, I unfortunately witnessed my best friend committing suicide. And for that 14 years, I held guilt, because I figured it was my fault because he cried out for help and I didn't go help him. So we're going to fast forward again back to May 11th, Mother's Day of 2014. I get a message from the woman you're seeing on your screen, a woman that I met back in high school, that stole my heart back in high school. She just didn't know it. And I never knew that I had stolen hers. But from the moment she stepped out of her car that night, I knew that she was going to be the one I married. And I knew that God had answered my prayers. And I realized that the voice that had told me to wait was God's. So as we sat and talked, literally all night, I think till 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, she helped me come to realize everything that was going on in my life was because I listened to the devil. And I didn't hold God in my life anymore. She helped me realize that the guilt I was holding for what had happened to my best friend wasn't mine to hold. You know, this guy was like a brother to me. We were 2 days difference in age. We sat and talked, and I felt a connection that I'd never felt before. I felt my spirit and my soul and my heart just open up. And that next morning, maybe on Tuesday morning, I did something for the first time that I hadn't done in a long time. And as soon as I went outside, I hit my knees. And I cried out to God, and I prayed. And I said, thank you, God. I'm so sorry for everything that I had done. Rebecca and I continued to talk. And she helped me realize that I needed deliverance. And so she came over Wednesday, and by the power of God, she was able to help deliver me from some demons that I had been holding inside of me. I truly believe God worked through my wife to save me. And I will forever be grateful for her, because she helped get me back onto the path of God. You know, this ministry and stuff that we started is a dream of mine that's come true. I once shared that dream back in high school with my best friend, and now I'm living it with my best friend. You know, each one of us has a different story to tell about how God's changed our lives. God is an on-time God. And I look back now and realize that for those 14 years of my life, God stayed with me. Allowed me not to die. Allowed me not to kill anybody. Allowed me to get to and from places safely, even though I probably shouldn't have. You know, now being born again back in May, I'm still an infant in my walk again. I'm relearning everything I knew back then. But I know now that God's never going to give up on me. Just like I'm never going to give up on God. You know, I see the time that we only got a couple minutes left. Hopefully it continues on. I'm praying it does. Rebecca, I would say, why don't you look and see if we can extend the time?
I think I just have to click the red button, so go ahead and
Okay.
speak.
You know, George, the conversations we've had before, I've learned a lot from you, just like I've learned a lot from my wife, just like I've learned a lot from the people who are on these forums. And I realize now that everybody's walk is different. And I'm not afraid to admit now that I used to be kind of jealous of my wife because she was so far ahead of me in my walk, in her walk, that I felt like I was being left behind. But I look at it now, and I'm so proud of her for everything that she has done to get Blood of Yehoshua off the ground, to get the radio show off the ground, which I think she said we're going to be starting here within the next week. Her sermons literally touch my heart every time I listen to them. And I know, and as I look at her across the table, I can see the Holy Spirit working inside of her now. The way she's able to reach out to people. I want to be like her one day, to be able to do that. But for now, I feel like the things that we're going through, and George, you touched on it earlier, about a spiritual warfare. And to say the least, that we've gone through a bunch of spiritual warfare in almost 8 short months that we've been married. I feel would have torn a normal couple apart. But the power and the grace of God has allowed us to continue our walk, not just as individuals, but as a couple. You know, it's I can't remember the exact verse number, but one of my favorite verses that I always keep in my head is, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. Your rod and your spear.
Yes, my staff.
My staff, sorry, thank you. They comfort me. I've been on the dark side. I've walked that dark side. You know, believe it or not, back in April through May of last year, I went through almost 140 bottles of liquor. That's how bad I had gotten. You know, I wasn't being the father I needed to be to our daughter. I wasn't being the friend I needed to be to friends. I wasn't being the person I needed to be. You know, I sit here now at the age of
32.
Thank you. Psalms 23:4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thank you, my love.
You're 32, by the way.
I am 32. Did I not say? What did I say?
You didn't.
Oh, thank you. I'm, you know, being 32 years old, I've put my body and my life through a lot. I used to literally take my anger out physically on people through wrestling matches, where I would purposely harm these people because I wanted to feel the pain. I enjoyed the pain. And if I had known back through all of this that I could have turned to God, because He did not forsake me like I have forsaken Him, I'd be a different person now. Even more so than what I am.
But God's an on-time God.
Huh?
God's an on-time God.
He is an on-time God. He truly is. You know, I sit here now, and you know, I'm sorry if I stutter. I'm sorry if I'm scatterbrained. But I really haven't shared my story with anybody but Rebecca, and I think you, George, if I remember correctly. George, have I shared my story with you, George?
Yeah.
Okay.
Briefly, yeah.
Just
I understand the fourth verse. That fourth verse in Psalm 23 is real special to you. But I would also look at the third verse, because that's where
He restoreth my soul.
yeah, and He leads me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake.
Amen to that, George.
And that's kind of, at least for me, that's kind of like when
Amen.
when you see that picture that people always have in their house of the two footprints in the sand, and they're actually Jesus carrying you, not you walking by yourself.
Amen.
So anyway, I just wanted to add that. But
Oh, I appreciate it, George. Thank you.
the other thing was, you know, the only thing that you need to caution, that you need to, I don't say this to admonish you, but
Admonish us.
no, all I'm saying is,
No, I mean it, because we're actually going through something where we admonish somebody, and a lot of people are rebuking us for admonishing, so we are open to admonishment.
Definitely.
no, what I was going to say was, that you're going. Don't forget, you're kind of going through that honeymoon stage with Jesus now. So don't forget that's where you are now, and that when you start having struggles of your own, don't think that He's left you hanging. You're maturing to a new level. That's all I wanted to add.
You know, it's funny you say that because there has definitely been a lot of things that have been happening to us. And it's with everything that's been going on, I keep reminding myself not to lose my faith because I lost it before. And you know, I look now at what I have in my life. You know, I have God, I have Jesus again, I have fellowship that I've never had before. You know, I have a loving, caring wife. I have 2 adoring kids that I love with all of my heart, that I would do anything for. And even though there are struggles that we are going through right now, and I know Rebecca can definitely attest to that.
I would like to
Go ahead and interject.
Well, I just wanted to chime in. I don't even know if Ruth is still listening or not, but she had commented on my profile and said, "Lord, I'll have what they're having." And I said, "Yes, Lord, all the blessings, but hold the trials."
Yep.
Because we don't post a lot of the trials online. I mean, we've spoken with you in private a little bit about them, but you know, we have since we've devoted ourselves to this ministry. We have faced a lot of trials, and we've seen physical manifestations of the spiritual warfare that we face, just like almost triple and quadruple almost. So we're definitely aware of the trouble aspect of things. We just don't, you know, on the social network, you don't really see too much of that unless you're privy to it in private messages. But I just wanted to interject about that because I thought it was so cute when she said, "Lord, I'll have what they're having." And she said she's still there. "I'll have what they're having." I was like, oh my gosh.
You, Ruth. We love you so
much.
much.
Yes, we love you. I said, "Yes, Lord, all the blessings and hold the trials."
You know, and it's funny because George, thank you for saying what you said. 1 hour, 1 day at a time. That is definitely the truth. You know, it's funny when Rebecca said we started devoting ourselves to this ministry. It is a joint thing. You know, she's thankfully. I'm so thankful for her to be able to work on it a little bit more because of me being at work and being gone most of the day. And we try to live the biblical lifestyle to where we can serve God. You know, and when to add to what she said, when we start getting spiritually attacked not only in our home but at the workplace, that's when we know that we're doing something right. And yes, people have tried to drive a wedge in between us.
I've been told that, or he was actually told that he shouldn't be letting me do my video, or
I was told that I shouldn't be allowing her to disciple or minister to people because it says in the Bible that she's not allowed to. Well, it says, you know, she's not really. I don't consider it preaching. She's discipling. She's telling her story. She's telling the word of what God puts on her heart to say, and I have no problem with that at all. You know, because I can learn more from her than I can from some of the people that I know. Because I know her walk with God. I know how close her walk with God is. Man, I'm not meaning to make you blush because I'm seeing you kind of turning red over there. You know, but it's all true. You know, we've gone through, and I'm not afraid to say this, we've gone through two churches. One of them we're going through a battle with right now because of some stuff that was said about us. And the other one we feel and we know
they're not really teaching
is teaching a false doctrine.
Yeah. We love them.
We love them. We love both of our churches, or both of the churches and the people in them. But when things start to happen that, number one, call our salvation and our walks with God into question, and then the second one starts to teach false doctrine. That's when we kind of backed off a little bit, and that's when we started realizing that. And I think Rebecca said this a while ago. She was saying, maybe this is God's mission for us, is to learn what we can from each church we go to strengthen our ministry. And I see now, in more into perspective, what she means by that, because we learned a lot in the month and a half, almost 2 months that we were at our other church.
Can I interject something there?
Please do, because Rebecca's giving me that look like, please be quiet.
Yeah. I hate to be, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm going to check out after this. But I was going to say, you know, I think, especially with the American traditional church, its days are numbered. And I think what we're doing now, because I'm in another Bible study that's local here, but I met them. Have y'all ever heard of the video series on YouTube called Know Your Enemy?
Yes, I love that one.
Yeah, well, I met them through that, and
you're on video. Go away. Go the other way.
Sorry about that, folks.
I thought he was doing a fly. Anyway, I just think that the church is going to start being like the early church, of just meeting in homes, and, you know, until some black chopper spirits us away, you know, that we'll be able to do it on the internet. But that's
what Tim said. He's like, why don't we start an internet church?
Well, I mean, whatever way, you know, we can get it done, and, you know, why
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
You're too kind. But yeah, just why should we give the whole internet to Satan? I mean, he's going to have he's going to be using it during the 7-year tribulation. I mean, how do you think the whole world is going to worship the beast at the same time? But yeah, I just say that to commend you on don't let these nabob churches, you know, push you around, and just do whatever you can on Facebook, and because no matter how bad Satan wants to, or Satan tries to stop you, if God wants you to preach, He's going to provide a way. Right. So anyway, folks, I'm gonna go ahead and check out. We doing this every 2 weeks?
I'd like to try to do it every week.
Yeah, we're going to shoot for every week. I mean, if not everybody can make it every time, that's fine. I mean, the one thing I do like about this platform is that it's available if you can't be there that day to, you know, play back. I'm going to try to get the tutorial video done to, you know, not only teach people how to come in through the video. George, I would like, since we do have some people that don't have video like you, if there's a way I don't know if you have video like on your cell phone or something. I don't know.
I've
Or
got video on another computer.
I mean, if you could show me or tell me how you got on tonight for the people that we know that don't have video, so that we can teach them how to get on like you did, that would be great.
The fact that I no longer have this responsibility of making a how-to video.
Well, and then we'll get the other how-to videos done so people can know how to log on and stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna close my baby Browns.
All
Okay.
right.
Do you want to close us out in some prayer, George?
Yeah. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your word, your Son, and your Holy Spirit, and your works. And we thank you for our salvation. Lord, we thank you for this fellowship, and we thank you for the commitment from Rebecca and Tim, and Lord, regardless of whatever we do, we just, from here on out, every time we meet, we ask you to come and just have your way, and ever how small the nuggets of wisdom are, just please don't leave us, and we know that you won't, but we just hope that you leave us with some nuggets of wisdom that we can hold dear in our hearts. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Chat at you.
All right. Thanks,
We love you,
George.
All right. Bye-bye.
And everybody that's out there that's watching, thank you for enduring all of the technical difficulties with us tonight. And like we said, we're going to try and get all of this figured out.
Got some instructional videos for those that are not familiar how to log on, and hopefully the technical difficulties won't be there next time.
And maybe things will go a little more smoothly. And like we mentioned, we are going to be doing a radio show, and that also archives as well. I think it's available on iTunes. I don't know. I'm learning all this as I go. I really hate technology, actually.
Yep, we now know us can live without it.
So yeah, that's on Blog Talk Radio. And so now I get to stop this broadcast and figure out how to get it on YouTube, and I'm going to try and, take out all of the outtake, all that crazy stuff in the beginning. But again, thank you all for joining us. I hope you will come back next Friday. And if you have any ideas for a topic for next week, send them our way. And we love you guys, and we will talk to y'all later.
Much love, guys. God bless you all.
Oh, wait, what's the sound do? So sad to go.